Hi, I'm Ellen from the Chili Dog. I'm working on a pair of entwinement socks, and I'm just about ready to start picking up stitches along the sides of the heel flap. The twined colorwork method I've used to knit the flap has created an easy to see edge with very well defined stitches, making this a great opportunity to talk about all the options you have when you pick up and knit stitches along an edge. First, we'll look at three alternatives for exactly where to pick up your stitches and why you may or may not prefer one over the other. Then we'll look at what happens when you knit those stitches with or without a twist. Let's get started. Before we begin, if you enjoy our videos, consider joining the pack and becoming a member of thechilidog.com for ad-free access to our entire learning library, priority support, and more. When you pick up and knit, you essentially have three options for where to pick up those edge stitches. You could pick up just under the front leg of the edge stitch. You could pick up and knit under the back leg of the edge stitch, or you could choose to pick up both legs of the edge stitch. If you pick up the front leg and then knit it, you'll have a more subtle transition between the fabric that you've already knit and the fabric you're about to knit. However, on the other side, that back leg will create just a slight ridge on the wrong side of your work. If you pick up the back leg and then knit the stitch, it's going to create a more obvious transition between the fabric you've already knit and the fabric you're about to knit, because the front legs of each stitch create a very prominent delineation. Picking up both stitch legs minimizes the size of the holes at the center of the lifted edge stitch. You can see when you lift either that back leg of the edge stitch or the front leg of the edge stitch, the stitch opens up quite wide. However, when you go under both legs of the edge stitch, the opening is much smaller. So you could lift both legs and knit. Once you've settled on how to pick up the edge stitches, you can choose how to knit them. For this pair of socks, I think I'm going to pick up my stitches under the back leg of the edge stitch so I get that prominent delineation on the side of my heel flap. I think it just looks nice with the color work. So the most obvious option is going to be just to pick up the stitch and knit it. So I'm going to pick up the back leg because that's what I'm choosing by inserting my knitting needle from the front to the back, lift that stitch up, and then I'll knit it. Depending on the yarn you're using and your gauge, and maybe even your stitch pattern, doing a plain pick up and knit can create a very open row of lifted stitches that almost looks like tiny eyelets. If that's not the look you're going for, instead, you can twist the picked up stitch by knitting it through the back of the loop. This sort of reminds me of a make one increase. So you lift the stitch from the front to the back and then knit it through the back of the loop instead of the front. The twist closes up that lifted stitch and makes a nice little crisscross. If you choose to twist the picked up stitches by knitting them through the back of the loop, there's one more thing you may want to consider. On my previous pair of entwinement socks, I picked up under both legs of the edge stitches and knitted them through the back of the loops. And if you look closely at those stitches, you can see that the crossed legs on one side of the heel flap slants in the same direction as the crossed leg on the other side of the heel flap. If you would like to improve your craftsmanship and have those slants mirror each other, on one side of the flap, pick up the stitch as usual and knit it through the back loop. On the other side of the flap, pick up your stitch from the back to the front. That gives the stitch a reverse stitch mount, and then knit it through the front of that lifted loop. And again, doesn't that remind you of a make one increase? I hope you enjoyed learning all the ways you can pick up and knit stitches along an edge. It's great that we have so many options. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your knitting friends. If you'd like to try these techniques in a pattern, head over to the shop section of thechilidog.com and look for our entwinement socks. Until we stitch again, happy knitting!